Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of The Deep, this podcast that James McMillan and I have started with our last episode. Episode 1 was on Jesus and our stories of how we experienced Jesus in our early years, and a little bit for now, too. And in this episode, we're stepping more into how Jesus saved us, I guess. Like, that's the simplest way I can put it. How we knew, like, that moment that we knew, oh, like, oh, this is like truly real. This is actually happening. This is like a lived experience. So, yeah, I'm really excited by this one. You're going to find out more about James and I and our experiences with Jesus. And yeah, James, like I could feel already the emotion coming up within me about what we're about to talk about. So I'm wondering, like, what does this all mean to you, or do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, it's pretty. I've got things coming up for me as well. And first, I just want to say good morning to everybody because it's 6 a.m. for us. And abundant blessings to everybody. And yeah, that last podcast was great. And it was really fun to share all those early stories and experiences. And yeah, and during the last couple of weeks, I've had a chance to reflect on that, and people have sent me different messages about it and things like that. And it's cool to be able to share the whole story. I'm so glad we're going to do 3 parts and share the early experiences, and then I guess what you said, the thing that really um, changed the way I see Jesus and the whole spiritual world, really. So I know people have different beliefs in different things and stuff like that, and and ours that we're sharing is about Jesus. And I remember the time. There's been little things along the way, I guess, but then there was a big thing where it was like, boom, hey, I'm here, and I was like, you really are here. And yeah, that was totally different to like all my earlier experiences in life. So yeah, I'm really keen to share that with people, and yeah, and to hear yours as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Like, just as you started speaking, you would have seen that my eyes kind of, get taken off, and I was really finding out, like, what is it that we're going to talk about today? How are we going to open this up? Of course, just like last episode, if you missed the last episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to it, as it's a precursor to this one. And all of our information again is down below. And it's funny because it's not funny, but I had like Jesus kind of showing me then, like, the different ways in which he's been depicted, the ways that he's been experienced. And it is an energy for me. I know for James as well, it's an energy. It's an energy of love. And I was kind of asking him, like, how do I explain that? So this is even like a real life example. How do I explain that? And he said it's the difference between going out in nature and experiencing nature in its purest form, or then going to like a man-made garden, a man-made forest, a man-made he said it's the same experience, but there's perimeters. There's been a decision made where this must be planted here and here and here and here. So the experience is being curated for you rather than just experienced naturally. And he's saying that's the difference between like organized religion. This is a very gentle way of saying it too, because I've heard him describe it other ways. But he's saying that's a gentle way of describing religion versus the experience of the energy. It's both the same energy, it's just different ways of experiencing it. One's being curated for you, one is the natural experience. And there's no way is better or different. They're just different. Yeah. But yeah, okay.
I don't know if there's any surfers listening. Hopefully there is. Some things that people, commented with me last time. But you really reminded me of just recently I went down to Melbourne to the wave pool. It's called Urban Surf. And
Yes.
that's definitely a curated experience, and it's a pool, and they make waves with a machine, and you're in a city surrounded by buildings. And some of the interesting conversations I had in the water were that, like, one guy was there, he just caught a wave and he paddled back out. And I said, "Oh, how was your wave, man?" And he said, "Yeah, really cool. I really like the setting they've got it on today, so that they, I was just like, oh, whoa, he knows the settings and everything. And I said, what do you compare with this man-made wave to, like, the beach, which was at Bell's Beach, which is his closest beach? And he said, "Oh, I don't go to the beach anymore." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, no, I just come here before work and then go to work." He works in an office. And I thought, wow, that's so convenient for him. But as the sun started rising and we kept surfing, and I saw one bird, there was one seagull actually flew past the lineup while we're there. And I was like, whoa, a bird. And so that's a man-made experience. And I didn't really experience God during that surf session, but when I go surfing here, just at my local beach, I do experience that, especially in the morning when the sun rises and there's birds around, and you don't know what the waves are going to be like, and it's unpredictable and it's wild. The clouds are different every day, and you really feel that impact of, like, nature and God and the full force of, like, that whole other realm. Um, Whereas compared to the wave pool, it's just about the waves and just, like, getting the best waves and just ripping them as much as you could.
I've got my session 10 to 11 and then I'm out.
Yeah, it was just like that. So that when you were talking there, it reminded me of that, like, one's a man-made one where there's probably not as much soul in it potentially, and the other one's like, boom, it's everything you're open to, you receive.
Yeah, I will have to use that though, like when I'm out in the ocean and say, "Oh God, I really love the setting you've got the ocean on today."
Yeah. Love the clouds you painted.
Oh, for those that are in Cronulla, well, this is going to come out a few days, but Sunday, let's thank God for Sunday's setting. Absolutely. Yeah, so I think,
Just
yeah,
making
that is that is the wild of the ocean, but that is when you're experiencing consciousness. That's when you're experiencing flow state. How much more I'm trying to think of how to experience flow state or something, and we're getting off topic here, but how to experience flow state like in the wave pool. It's an experience, but it's not that connection to consciousness when you can hear machines. When
yeah,
you know, I
takes
think,
you a bit for sure when because you do hear the machine, don't you? You hear, like, boom, and then the waves start coming.
yeah. And I think it's like, I'm sure others are as well. I'm very sensitive to sound. And if I'm in the water and I hear a drone, I get, if I'm in the water and I hear a foil, the old ones that were petrol, I'm like, you
Yeah.
know, it's kind of like, I don't want to hear someone's wristwatch dinging, ding, like you've got a message, or someone took a call out in the south. This is not flow state for me.
Uh,
But I'm being brought back to topic here, so we're going to go off into a consciousness rant.
no, I was just gonna can I ask something though, which is on topic for sure. Do you, like, if you want to get, in the zone or connect with Jesus, do you find you have to get yourself into a particular place and, a particular moment where it's quiet in nature or in your home with no distractions to, like, really tap into that consciousness, or can you flip in and out of it at any moment in the cafe having a coffee with your girlfriend? Can you, like, duck in and duck out, or
Yeah.
not as
Oh,
powerful?
yeah. Well, I don't ever think I'm out of it.
Yeah,
Um, and I feel like anyone that's on a spiritual path, the minute you say, "Oh, I have to connect," means that in some part of your mind you don't feel like you're connected, right? So it's like I'm always connected. I know that I'm always connected. But if there's loud external noises, it's more difficult for me to hear or
yeah,
experience. So that's why I get frustrated. Imagine if like you're at a party and you're trying to hear your child and you can't. That would be a level of frustration, or like you're like wanting to take them to a quiet space to hear them. So for me, like, and as you were saying that, James, there was like a day last week. I was here at home and there was like construction noise started next door. And so I thought, all right, I jumped in the van and drove up to Green Hills and thought I'll just get work done up there. I'll sit in the van and I can sit up there and do it. And I went up to Green Hills, which is normally so peaceful and quiet in the middle of the day. And they were doing helicopter training. And I was like, okay. And so I drove down into South Cronulla, the same construction everywhere. I ended up going all the way down to Shoes or Oak Park, parked the van, thought, okay, it doesn't matter about work. I went down into the rock pool and I literally laid out, like floated, and it started raining. And I was laying in the rock pool by myself, floating for about 10 minutes, and I had complete silence. So I know that anytime that I'm needing silence or wanting stillness, that's underwater for me. So if I'm at home, it could be like in the bath, like I'll just like float, like put my head under the water. And if I've had a really busy day, it's the ocean and it's floating in the ocean. And the minute I did that, it was just like Jesus came in, energies came in, everyone started talking. And I literally felt all of my nervous system relax.
Yeah.
So in our world, like sometimes everybody's day is just surrounded by noise,
Yeah.
people, distraction, machine. And so to find that place of stillness where I can converse or hear what is being said to me. And sometimes it's just them sitting or their presence sitting with me, you know. And in that moment, I just felt held by the ocean, by consciousness, by God, by Jesus. And I stayed there for ages with my eyes closed, just floating around in the pool, ended up bumping against the end of the pool. And then
Yeah. Pretty funny, actually.
and I
Yeah.
got out, and one of the young surfers was getting out at the same time. There's only about three guys out because it wasn't that great. And we were at the shower together, and he's like, that looks so cool what you're doing. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you had the whole pool to yourself. He's like, I watched you for ages and you were just floating around. And I said, I wasn't doing anything. And it just like clicked something. It,
Yeah.
just the way I said it or what I said. And so I think that's the key to connection with Jesus or anything is like we feel we have to do something.
Yeah.
Just have to be open, be still, be
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about for you?
Um, what did I ask you? Yeah, to connect. Oh, look, I can. Yeah, sorry, I forgot what I asked you. I was too involved in the story and feeling. Uh, yeah, I can connect pretty quick, and and I think if I'm in a less noisy area and a less people and stuff like that, I can like get it going deeper quicker. And sometimes if I'm in a conversation with somebody or a place that is busy, I can just, oh, wait, just one sec. And I'll just like tell them, if it's someone I know. If I don't know them, I'll just disappear for a minute. If I feel like I want to like tap into something, I can just close my eyes, do a couple of deep sort of Kriya breaths, and feel it come in, feel Jesus' presence pretty quickly sort of come in, and then I can sort of ask, questions or start a little conversation, something I'm seeking or wanting for somebody else. And then, yeah, I can get in there pretty quick now. But that's been developed over a long time. And I guess my belief systems have changed as well from like being a kid in school and thinking I have to go into the church to connect with God and Jesus, like in the building, or through the priest during confession.
Yeah,
Uh,
we have to
now
pray.
now it's just like a mate. It's just like, oh, of the highest order. But yeah, I can, tap in at different levels. And I think when I lived up on a mountain behind Mullumbimby for a couple of years, and I was by myself, and that was definitely my like initiation into like a different realm for sure, because I was there for days and days on my own painting in the forest with nobody else around at all for days and days at a time every week for 2 years, you know. And, yeah, that was a solid initiation into a different way of experiencing like Jesus and Christ consciousness for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Like if I'm with someone, I can just have hit. So it's kind of like imagine you're like in a busy office and you'll just be handed like information. So I now it's like kind of rapid fire that I can be in conversation and it just kind of comes through quick, quick, quick. But I love what you said about the breast because last week literally I wrote the distance between us and Creator or Jesus or any kind of energy is three breaths. Like the distance between you and Creator is three breaths. So the distance that you visualize or feel that is between you and this is true and correct.
yeah,
So it's like if there are parameters put around your connection, like, oh, you must follow this procedure, you must be here within this building, you must be on your knees, you must be. No, I feel like no matter where you are, and sometimes if I'm talking or if I've got clients that are like busy business owners, executives, things like that, sometimes the only peace they get is like in the bathroom
mm,
in their day. And I'm like, okay, to connect during that time, you have a meeting, go into the bathroom, three breaths, find your message, come to your stillness, come to your point of peace, and then go.
yeah,
And it's like that's it. It's what you believe is reality. What you believe, you perceive. What you believe, you receive. You
yeah,
know. So yeah, create zero distance between yourself and Jesus, or yourself and consciousness, or yourself and God, and there is zero distance.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful, I think. I love what you said about that. What you perceive, you receive, or believe, you receive. Sounds a bit like a poem, but like it was around those three words, and I really believe that you know, and especially if you have little experiences along the way of you know of like, oh, he's right there, or God's right there, and then you experience it, then you start believing even more, and it snowballs over time to where it's closer.
Do you know where that started from?
What, the snowball, the top of the
No,
mountain?
no, the what you believe you receive. That started from me telling my kids like that in regards to Santa and the Easter Bunny. If,
Okay.
yeah, always it's like if you believe you receive. That's
All
it.
right.
So as they got older, and I didn't want to leave that stage behind.
Mm.
It was more me, not them. I was like, well, if you believe in Santa, you receive.
I don't know how to put that. It's pretty cool though.
But now it pertains to Jesus and consciousness as well. It always has. I think it's in regards to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Um, I'd love to, if it's okay, I'd love to hear like one of your experiences with Jesus, like a real life experience, because I'm sure you've had a few, even in the conversations I've had with you. You have brought it up the first time I met you, actually. Um, not the experience, but you brought it up, Jesus, you know, and I'd love to hear, you know, one of your experiences. If,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, for sure. I think they keep showing me the same experience. So, when I'm talking, sometimes when I say they keep showing me, they'll show me like it's like a memory comes in, but it's not like a memory that, oh, you're thinking about something and a memory comes in. A memory is like delivered to me. And this one, and then it's like it kind of gets repeated until I start speaking of it. So this is the one that they want me to show first, or tell, or show first, or tell first.
yeah,
When I first began energy healing, um, Jesus, God, consciousness can come to you through many different people in many different ways. And so when I first experienced his actual energy, his actual form, was right at the beginning of me practicing energy healing in my house with clients. I don't think I had like six paying clients before this happened. And how I even came to energy healing was, and they're showing me that, you know, Jesus or that energy was working through her too, even though she was this tiny little Indian woman, even though she was practicing hypnotherapy on me, which is now something that I do, and I definitely use the practices and techniques that she showed me too, but coming through her in a different way to how I perceived it, to when Jesus was sitting in physical form at the end of my treatment bed. So I have this client laid out. She has the blanket on her. We're in the sunroom of my old apartment, and for all my old Cronulla friends and clients, they're very familiar with this room. And my little apartment was like this big tree house. It was just wall to ceiling plants. And so my little sunroom had this treatment bed that was made out of wood that I had given to me, that I didn't even need to buy, because the women, when I went to pick it up and pay for it, they were like, no, this is going to the right home. You don't have to give us any money. And I was like, no, I've got cash here for you. And they're like, this table has been energy healing for more than 20 years. It's now going to be continued with you. And it is a fantastic table. It's amazing. And so I had my client on this bed. I had my grandmother's blanket on her. Like, I just love things that have energy, mana, prana within it. And so I'm working on this client, still very new to energy healing, still very new to Reiki, still very new to like how it all works, and very much following protocols and procedures. And I had my eyes closed and working on this client, and I had this like shimmer of light come at the end of the bed. And it's like a massage table, you know, it's not like a huge bed, it's like a massage table. And I was kind of like, I opened my eyes and closed my eyes again. Again, the shimmer of light was there. It was like just this like glow like this. And then the more I focused on it, it would fade. And then if I came back to like what I was doing with the client, it would come into form. And so I kind of like in a very, and this is all happening like in split second timing, like over a few seconds. Like I'm realizing that if I focus on it, it goes. If it's peripheral, it comes to form. Does that make sense? Like soft gaze would bring it into sharper focus. And so I was kind of just like working on my client like this with kind of like my eyes closed, but that like if you were doing like side eye or something. And as I was working on this client, and I'm talking, and I was, you know, talking about what I was experiencing in regards to energy. I'm starting to get really hot now, which is a big sign for me too. And then I just see these two hands like placed on my client's feet through the blanket. And it's like this, as soon as I saw the hands, they were clear. Like my eyes were closed, the hands were clear. And as soon as I focused on the hands, it's like the whole rest just like lit up. I don't even know if I'm describing it as much as what I am. They're saying, relax, you are. Okay. And so I just have, I'm kind of stop talking, stop doing anything, and I'm looking, and the softest face is looking at me. Instantly, I have no fear. Instantly, I have like zero fear. I'm just like held. Like I didn't want to move, I didn't want to breathe, I didn't want to disturb what was going on here. I felt like any movement, any breath from me would collapse what I was experiencing. And so I didn't even know how long I didn't breathe for. Like I don't know. And I was kind of just like, oh, and a softest smile, softest eyes, softest gaze. All I felt was love. I got a simple nod as if to say, continue. And I was like, and I'm kind of doing that like, I knew, like, I knew who it was. Like, I knew, like, there's no question. Like when you're in that presence, there's no question. There's no question. You're like, oh my God, this is actually happening. I'm getting like super sweaty now. And I kept doing the session, and I felt the energy. I could see the form anytime I looked, and it would still be the same thing, just a smile, the softest eyes, and a little nod to say continue. And so I finished the session. I always had a cup of tea with my clients afterwards. Like we'd sit in the little chairs that I had there, and we'd sit and have a cup of tea and talk about what happened. And I just like, I couldn't talk. I didn't want to, I couldn't verbalize what had happened. I still felt the presence of the energy behind me. I kind of like hurried them out the door. I know exactly who it was, but I don't want to say because they wouldn't have noticed any different. I was just, and look how fidgety I get. Okay.
You hurried them out the door. It's funny because you wanted to connect or what was still there.
Yeah, I kind of, you know, the thing what I know now about energy is the one time you've had this experience, it is yours forever. One time you experience a particular energy, it's yours forever. There's no like, oh, that was a one-time thing. No, 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 no. If you've told yourself it was a one-time thing, it was. Like you've had access to that energy. So then after they left, I just was like, okay, like I knew meditation was the thing. So I went into my bedroom and sat on my bed and it was like as soon as I closed my eyes, he was like sitting on the edge of my bed. Like I had my eyes closed. So I explained last episode, it's like a hologram, but this was like vibrant. This was like no other image I'd seen before then, right? Now that's the way that I see things, but this was like vibrant, like full holographic form, full smiling, talking to me, facial like changes in face, movements of like the body. It wasn't just like an energy, like I felt it, or like a light, a soft glowing light that came in, or waves or currents of energy. And so I just sat there with him and I was like, what's happening here? Like this, you know, like, and he was just like, he just like took over. He was like, be still, child. And even this morning before the podcast, like I was still waking up because it is early morning for us. And I went outside and just put my face to the sky and it was like, be still, child. So the same thing, be still, child. And I was like, okay. And so he was, okay, so I'm just gonna ask, like, what was it that that first conversation was about? You're here, this is energy is talking to me. So this is like, to me, they're saying it was about your healing capabilities. And that conversation, there was a lot of disbelief within you. So Jesus is saying like what he had to work with me first was my belief and trust.
Yeah.
Right? In myself, in my capabilities, but just belief and trust in him. He assisted with like almost every healing I ever did, teaching me this, like I would just be shown movements, hand movements to do. I would be shown where to place my hands. It was like, I studied Reiki. I studied two forms of Reiki, and I have to say that after he came in, I really didn't focus so much on what was taught in the Reiki. I understood it to be the channel was open. So it was like Reiki gave me keys for doors to open, if that makes sense. But then I started working with lights. He started introducing other beings. He introduced Mother Mary to me. He introduced Mary Magdalene. And then I went through this whole teaching of alchemy of energy and transformation of energy and how I can convert it. So he's kind of very much on the healing side of things. He assists me, or I don't like to say that. He works through me.
Yeah.
But that first conversation was all about, he said he like literally, because I'm asking permission right now, can I say exactly what he said? And he's like, yes. So his exact words, and I don't want to mess this up because this is like the delivery of this was just so profound. He said he wishes he could take a stick to those who wrote the book,
Interesting.
for their hearts were not pure, their intentions were not pure, their love was not pure. Their love of power was what drove them to write what they wrote.
Mm.
He's like, just stop that. Because I'm like, can I keep going? And they're like, so this is all in the first conversation I have with him. And
Wow.
and I'm seeing now that that conversation had to be like that for me as the individual, because I had thrown Jesus out, like the baby out with the bathwater,
Yeah.
regards to religion.
Yeah.
So
Right.
he needed a directness that I would respond to, for me personally, that I would respond to and be like, okay, this is legit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So now it's just like more of what the energy healing I still do and love. Now what do we do more of is more messaging. So he helps me with a lot of the messages that I receive.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Messages to pass on to other people and stuff like that, you mean? Or just like
Yeah, it's always
your work?
like the distance between you and creator is 3 breaths ETM.
Yeah.
So it's like short, sharp things. Like I could go through my notebook and pull out half a dozen of them. He said just open a page, one thing. All right.
Well,
So
that's
this
it.
is just completely random. Oh, Jesus. All right. Okay. He says compassion. Compassion is the highest form of empathy. Give yourself permission to receive compassion.
Mm,
Permi-
powerful.
yeah, permission to shut down, regroup, and cleanse. Rest is a form of self-compassion, and you don't need to keep it together all the time.
Mm,
So that was like for one of my students, but that compassion is the highest form of empathy. And then when I said to her, like, give yourself permission to receive compassion, we're very free, and like, and so the expansion comes when I kind of think of that statement, that we're very free in giving compassion to others. We can deeply feel for other situations, for things that happen around us, things that happen in the world.
yeah.
And it's very rare that we allow ourselves to feel that same level of compassion from us.
From yourself, you
Yeah,
mean, or from others?
no, from
Ah,
ourselves. Like we don't show ourselves enough compassion.
mhm. That's a good one. That's a really good, powerful one. That'd be a good conversation. That one, good topic for everyone. I mean, that's a really good one. I'm just feeling it now as you're saying it. I'm feeling that for me and how hard I am on myself sometimes with lots of things, with my art, my surfing, friendships, all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
Mm.
but I'm learning as well as I go. That's for sure. But yeah, that's a really good one.
Mm. Yeah, so I love that idea of rest is even a form of self-compassion. Rest with no like, like oh, you think, oh no, I could have a nap or I could just keep pushing through. But rest to me can be me just sitting in the sofa and watching the light shadow on the wall, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
sitting and watching the wind in the leaves. Like it doesn't have to be, rest is like anytime your mind comes to stillness.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this has all come from those words that Jesus delivered to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and breaking it down and yeah, unpacking it.
Mhm.
That's really good teaching in amongst all that. I'm going to really sit with that later.
Not now. We're doing a podcast.
Later. Right. Thanks for sharing that. Jeez. Mm,
Yeah. So James,
mm,
now with that energy of compassion for self,
mm.
do you want to share your Jesus story and what your experience is?
Time is it? Yeah. I've got, look, I've got a couple. I mean, there's been a few, more than a few, but there's three that really stand out for me that really changed my life. And that's over a 20-year period as well. You know, it takes, like I said, there's been little ones in between, but yeah, there was one, 6 months ago that was definitely a whole game changer definitely in my energetic work. And then there was another one probably 2016, 2014, when I sort of got initiated into Kriya yoga, which is interesting. That'll probably set off a few things. And then the first one that really did actually change my life in a huge way was in 2002, which came really unexpected. And it changed my whole understanding of who Jesus is and what's possible in that spiritual realm and like, you know, what's God, what is God. Um, yeah, it was at a time in my life when I I had been in depression for a long time for 14 years, and that had been since my dad passed away. My dad passed away when I was a teenager, and yeah, and I fell into depression probably over a period of 3 years after he passed away, and I was in a really dark place. And I probably even had a hit of psychosis in there as well, just to make it interesting in my daily life. I can laugh about it now, but I tell you what, when I was in it, there was not a laughing matter. And I don't know if I mentioned this in our last podcast, the first one on this. That I don't really know how I got through, like I said, every day, but I did. And I think it was because I was in a space maybe naturally where I was able to come outside and look down at myself and my life each day and kind of witness myself at the same time as being in it. Um, yeah, which was, now to look back at it, definitely a gift to be able to do that, sometimes to separate myself from my 3D experience, because it was really heavy and I really understand depression so wholly and so fully after being in it when every single day you're hearing voices, and you're hearing evil voices and like dark messages constantly over and over and over. And, to get through a day is a real challenge and you just look forward to going back to sleep, just like I can't wait to get home tonight to get things done and just like go back to sleep again because sleep's my only peace. Um, and I guess throughout that as well, I learned that my other peaceful place, the only other place where I would have peace was actually surfing on a wave when I was actually on the wave surfing, not paddling out, not waiting for the wave or anything, but when I was on the wave,
Yeah.
because that was the only time when, I distinctly remember I was surfing one day at the alley at Cronulla and I was out there with a mate of mine called Jeremy Harback, he was a really good Cronulla surfer, a goofy footer, and he used to surf the reef breaks a lot, like Voodoo and Shark Island and stuff like that. He was a charger. He was someone I really looked up to. He was a bit older than me, and yeah, he used to drag me out and surf a lot of the reef breaks when I was really young, when I was still studying carpentry and just out of school. When I lived in Croydon Street. But surfing, yeah, I was surfing with him one day at the alley, and I remember sitting out the back. And I've told you this story where I was sitting out the back and I was looking at the horizon. I was actually started crying. I was so depressed and so down and so over life and over feeling that way that I was actually in the surf crying, which was, I was like, man, I'm at the bottom. This is like, this must be the bottom. My favorite activity, and I'm in the water crying. And then I caught a wave. I surfed the wave, and then I surfed it good like I normally would. Then I started paddling back out, and as soon as I started paddling back out, I was back in the dark zone. And after the surf, I remember sitting on the rocks and reflecting back on the session and remembering that, wow, the only time when I didn't feel bad was when I was actually on the wave surfing. And then this word came to me, no mind state. Like I was not in my mind, my mind, I was in another place, another realm, another experience. And I think the no mind state thing kind of really stuck with me after that, and it has to this day. But I realized that, like, from doing that and being in that place, that I could get out of the emotional, chemical, or spiritual experience of the depression that I was in. But yeah, it was deep and dark for a long time, and yeah, for over a decade. And what happened to me with the experience of Jesus was that there was uh, what's the time? I'm just thinking I got about 15 minutes or something, just for the sake of like brevity and like 15 minutes. I'll try to get the story.
Time is a construct that we make us feel safe. So don't worry about time. Go with the story.
Yeah, I'll go with the story. Hi, Noah.
Hello, love.
Fresh out of bed. This is
Oh,
Nicole.
that's the best smell.
Yeah.
Oh, cuddly.
Yeah. No one knows the story.
Mm.
I share it. But yeah, so I guess I was in the depths of depression, and I didn't want to be there anymore, that's for sure. And I'd been praying like every day, every moment I could, in the ways that I knew at that time, which was like coming out of like a church background and stuff like that. And but as well being a spiritual soul as well, and so praying a lot and trying to understand what I was going through and really wanting not to be there anymore. And I went to bed one night and I did the usual thing where I'd like, because what I would do when I'd go to bed was I'd just focus on like the desert and this one rock in the desert, just so I could just be only looking at that and try and get rid of the voices in my head, because you really do hear voices in your head when you're going through depression. And that's why I say before about the psychosis thing, because there's a real tipping point between like, I was right on the fence of like, go that way and you go crazy and see you later into the psych ward, or stay over here and you're in reality, the reality that you've always known. So I was right on the fence. And like I said, I was staying there, um, for whatever reason, I was able to do that. But focusing on like the desert and this one rock when I went to bed at night before I fell asleep was a really good practice of like just getting in like a one pointed focus and then falling into the sleep zone, and and then hoping I wouldn't wake up again. And so before I went to bed this night, I prayed. I prayed about my state of mind and not wanting to be depressed anymore, and just like wanting to be like happy again and find joy in my life, enjoying my surfing and my family and all the things I love. And because I didn't have that for a very long time. And anyway, that night I went I prayed and I went to bed and I fell asleep, and there's the sun just coming in, the light shining on me. And so I was having a dream, and in the dream I was in my old bedroom that I was in when I was a teenager, and and in the dream I was sitting in my bedroom, and my friend Peter, I'll just say Pete actually, because maybe don't say his whole name. But I mentioned in the first podcast that he was, he's a Christian. He has been his whole life, and ever since I known him, and he still is now. He
Yeah.
married his high school sweetheart, and he's still with her now. And he's just an amazing example of a husband, of a father, and as a friend as well. He's a really good friend to me. But he would talk to me about Jesus, only when I asked though, because I knew he was like strongly, should I get rid of the blinds or
Maybe.
talking about this and now the sun's shining on me. Wait a second.
Hi, Noah. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, and so yeah, in the dream, I'm in my bedroom and there's Pete, and which was quite significant, I thought, now looking back at it. And I can hear this train coming in my dream, and it's a train coming on the tracks as it goes over the timber, and it's like it's getting closer and closer, and the noise is, and it's getting louder and louder. And I'm thinking in the dream, I'm like, it's gonna smash into the bedroom and wreck all my surfing and band.
All your posters.
And anyway, I looked at Pete and I said, "What do you think this is?" And he said, "Don't worry, Jimmy, it's only God." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then bang, the train, like in the dream, the train smashed into the bedroom and kind of exploded. This is yeah, it made this big banging noise. And instantly I woke up. So I went from sleep until I sat up, and I was awake, and I was like, whoa, what just happened? And my ears were ringing. My ears were like woo, like a really strong buzzing noise. And the first thing I thought was like, wow, okay, that happened in my dream, but this is happening in reality. Like my ears were buzzing in reality from the dream. So
Yeah.
that was quite weird, because the night before when I was praying, I'd said, okay, God, like I really need a sign. If if you're real, and if I can get healed, give me a sign, because I'm pretty much at the end of this 14-year depression period. I'm over it. And yeah, hope, anyway. So that happened, and then I sat up in my bed, and I remember my prayer, and I was like, oh, maybe this is a sign. And so I got out of bed and walked out, into the backyard in my undies, and looked up at the sky, and I'm like, I'm like, is this a sign? And like nothing happened. I was like, just looking at the stars, all I heard was crickets. I was like, okay, maybe that's a sign. And so I went back inside and went to bed. But because the noise was so loud, I just thought maybe it woke up other people in the house, because I had my sister-in-law there, had my two older boys there, and I had my wife at the time there. And everyone else was fast asleep. And I was like, wow, why are my ears so ringing and so sore? So I went back into my room, sat in my bed, and I sat in my bed in the dark. But as I looked to the rear of my bedroom, these two lights appeared, one on that side and one on that side of my bedroom, and very bright, fuzzy lights. And I was looking at them for real awake, and I kind of understood that they were angels. And because the lights definitely weren't on, there was no lights in those areas. And as I'm looking at them, these lights started coming towards me, and I started freaking out because I didn't understand what was happening. I just didn't know about this, and so I laid back down in my bed, and they came all the way over to the top of my body, and then they started coming down towards me, and I couldn't stop them, and still didn't understand what was happening. And so I watched them come all the way down, and they kind of just they disappeared into my body, into my chest, and then they were gone. And then I closed my eyes, and as I closed my eyes, I was hit with a direct vision, and the vision was like these two angels were like started pulling this like a demon out of my body, like an actual
Mhm.
carcass. It was a terrible thing to see, but and I could control it was happening to me. And in this closed eye vision, I watched them pull this like kind of brown terrible thing out of my body. Like it was a body as well, looked like a skeleton with flesh hanging off it. Sorry guys about the horror, but yeah, but it started coming out, and then they pulled it out, and then as it came out of my body, I opened my eyes again, and I saw the angels like disappear up through the roof of my bedroom, and then I could no longer see them, and so then I closed my eyes again, and the vision just hit me again straight away, and there's the angels like flying across like it looked like the universe. It was just like a starry kind of sky, with this demon. I interpreted that to be a demon, which instantly I interpreted that to be my depression. And they took it out, because for a long time I understood that I was like possessed. That's what I thought. I thought, geez, I'm possessed, and that was that's another story and another interesting one why I thought that. But yeah, I'll keep it pretty simple. And so they flew out. They were flying across the sky with this demon, and then they got to the edge of this like the earth. It looked like a big cliff, looked like the Great Australian Bight. And they went out and they dropped this demon, and I remember in my vision thinking, well, if this thing hits the rocks and explodes, maybe that's the end of my depression. And they dropped it, and yeah, I just watched this thing hit the rocks below and exploded into like the tiniest dust particles, not big ones, but tiny little just
Yeah,
dust.
just
So it was
stuff.
completely gone. I couldn't even see it settle on the rocks. It was so minute, every little part of it, that it was gone. And I was like, whoa. And then bang, the angels did a U-turn, chucked a Yui, started coming back, and then all of a sudden they appeared back in my bedroom, and they came over me again and hovered over me, and they came all the way. I was sitting up then. They came all the way to the top of my crown, and they kind of sort of disappeared again. But when that happened, at that moment, I had this feeling come into my crown, which I probably know now as my crown chakra, and like started dripping through my whole body. And the only way I've ever been able to explain that, and no, probably won't understand it, is it felt like an orgasm, and which is like a whole body bliss experience, really. But in even better than that, though, like in the biggest way. And obviously, I'd experienced that then because I had children. And but it sunk through my whole body, like from my head, and I closed my eyes because it felt so amazing, and it went through my whole body, every part of it, through to my fingers, all the way down through my tummy, my hips, my legs, all the way down to my toes. And it might have taken about 10 minutes for all this. I'm not sure. When I first woke up, it was 2 o'clock. And I'm just saying that for a reason, which I'll explain a bit in a minute. And so that whole feeling went through my body. And then after that finished and I opened my eyes, that's when Jesus appeared to me for the first time in my life at the end of my bed. And I
He
couldn't believe.
likes the ends of beds, apparently.
Maybe that's when we're in that particular zone or space to receive. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of this stuff I can't explain. I can some of it now, but a lot of I still can't. A lot of it. But anyway, sure enough, yeah, there he was. He appeared, and I was looking at him as a bit like a hologram, like you said too. Like I could see through him. The cupboard was behind him, but he was there. He was, and I was just didn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And he just said these words. He said, "You will touch people and make them feel good." And then I was like, "What?" I kind of did that. I was like, "What?" and then like, and then he just disappeared. Like, and I was like, no, like more, like more words, like give me more stuff. And yeah, he just disappeared. And then I was just looking at the cupboard again, and I was like, whoa, like what's going on? Um, and I just sat in bed for a little bit longer, and then there was no more angels. I kind of felt amazing, but wasn't sure. Jesus disappeared, and at the time I was writing a book, so I was really in my writing mode, and I thought I better go and write all this down. So I went to the room next door to our bedroom where I had my desk set up, and I wildly just wrote everything down for about probably 30 minutes. I wrote like 7 or 8 foolscap pages of every single detail because I did not want it to disappear. And then I went back into my room, and I remember looking at my clock, and it was 4 a.m. So the reason I told you before, the time I woke up was 2, and then the time when I looked was 4, is because all that took 2 hours. It's taken 10 minutes now to explain it, but it was like a really kind of long, drawn out experience of which there was no time anyway. Like I didn't even realize about the time thing. I was in some other dimension. And yeah, it was 4 o'clock, and I knew I had my alarm set for 6 o'clock because I was getting up every morning at 6 o'clock to go surfing because you know, I understood that surfing and got me the no mind state, and I wasn't in the depression state. And every morning I was like, this could be the morning where I go surfing and I actually feel good for the rest of the day. But it never happened. But still, I had faith, and I went surfing every morning. And so anyway, I went back to sleep, and my alarm went off at 6 o'clock the next morning. And I woke up and I turned my alarm off. Didn't have a phone at that stage. It was one of those, big brown,
You've got,
rectangle.
you've got your Jesus alarm now.
Yeah, I got the Jesus alarm that I used this morning. Actually worked. Thanks for the tip. And yeah, I turned the alarm off, and I thought back to what happened overnight, and I was like, was that real? Like, what happened? And I quickly ran next door into the room that had the desk set up, and sure enough, there's was all the pages of the evidence of everything. And I started reading it. I read a bit at the start, and then I read a bit at the middle and a bit at the end. And I was like, "Whoa, this really happened!" And and then I walked back into the room, and I just opened the blinds up a little bit to look outside to check the wind to see what would be doing for the surf. And and in that moment, when I opened the blinds up and I saw like this tree that used to come across the window and the blue sky, I, I I'm getting so many goosebumps right now in my whole body because the feeling was like a feeling I felt like I'd never experienced that feeling in my whole life because it had been 14 years of depression and darkness and hearing voices and the devil and everything. And I just remember the feeling, and I was like, "Wow, this looks so beautiful today." And I quickly like disappeared, and went for my surf before everyone woke up in the house. But I remember driving to the beach, like just down to the alley at North Cronulla where I used to surf, where I grew up surfing. And I went and I had my surf, and it was like sunny and beautiful, and it just kept remaining sunny and beautiful, and I couldn't believe it. And then I went home, and I remember sitting there eating some wheat bix, just thinking, wow, I feel like good. I still feel good. Is this how good feels? And anyway, that was my life changing experience because since that day until now, I've never had depression, and that happened overnight. So I had a supernatural healing,
Mhm.
and and it actually happened to me, and that was when I was like, whoa, angels are real. Jesus, this is real. His whole other realm is real, and I experienced it. And, the fact that it took 14 years for that to happen, I can't explain. And the fact that it happened to me, I can't explain, but I'm so forever grateful for every single day of my life. Everything else is a bonus after that, every little thing, anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's what happened to me and what got me like sort of I guess, into a whole different understanding of like Jesus and of like religion as well, because I wasn't a perfect person. I was a sinner, you know, and but the fact that that could still happen to someone even like me and for what I'd done in my life and what I'd been through was just like amazing. And it also, after that I started sort of questioning manifestation and prayer as well, and what
The
I
power
understand
of prayer.
about those two things.
Yeah, I, this story is going to change things for a lot of people. Um, Change their idea of what can happen with energy. The power of prayer is incredible. Like, and that connection that you've got to Jesus, like we've had many conversations about it, and hearing this story, um, angels are warriors.
Mm,
People think angels are really light and fluffy. No, they are absolute warriors in regards to those that are needing help or assistance, or are struggling with something. Time and time again, I'm shown just how much love and support that we have on the other side, or on this side, or within us. And I really want to say thank you for sharing this, because I know it's huge. It's huge, and it turns a lot of things on its head when people are like, after so many years of struggling with the darkness, like, I know for me, with depression, it was a combination of that God energy, Jesus, the sun, like sunrise. I could have been, a native from many years ago with my sun worshipping, because I believe that the sun was healing me
yeah,
from my depression. And so, um,
I had depression.
huh?
I know that you had depression.
Yeah, but it was more after, it was like postnatal.
Oh yeah, no, you think you have shared that with me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this energy of Jesus, like, and the healing capability, and the insight, and the fun, and the joy, like to have that energy come back to you, you do see the day like it's the first time you're ever seeing blue sky. You know, you do see every movement of every leaf on every tree. You do see the way the sunlight sparkles on the water, the little stars of the sea. You see them. You see the color in someone's cheeks. You notice the beauty in everything around you. And it's like you feel like you've missed out on so much because you've been walking around with a blindfold in, with this darkness within that draws all of your attention and energy within. And it's almost like this sunburst of light comes out of you when you're out of it, and it's like all of a sudden you can open up to everything that's in the world.
Mm.
How do you feel sharing it?
Yeah, look, I didn't share it for a long time because not because I didn't understand it, probably because I thought I'd be seen as like a freak and like I didn't think anyone would believe it. And it is hard to believe, I think, if you haven't had any experiences, but it doesn't really matter to me now. Like I love sharing that story. I don't share it with everybody because takes energy to share it, and if I feel like it's a bit of wasted energy, I won't share it. But I know when it's
I need
time.
to tell you, you've just shared it with everybody.
Yeah, I know, and I'm fine with it. Everybody listens. But yeah, and I'm fine with it because I think it happened for a reason. It didn't happen just for me because I picked you, James, especially for this. This is like for everybody. And I think the more people that hear it, the better. you know, because everything has different effects on different people. I know even from a painting, you know, when I do one, every single person will say something different, you know, of how it affects them. I know this story will, you know, touch people in lots of different ways, and I hope it's all in positive ways. And I'm happy to talk about it more if anyone wants to, you know, like send any messages or start a conversation or whatever, reach out to me for sure, because there's lots of different parts within that that can be broken down. And I've learned a lot since then as well, you know, and Jesus has come to me a couple more times since then in really huge ways as well,
Yeah.
which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's just it's like literally the tip of the iceberg. This was just the instigating point.
Mm.
And so this can open up a huge conversation in other people's experiences. Like if you want to share with us your experiences, and it could be something so life-changing, it could be something simple. It could be just a conversation or a feeling of that energy. Um, there was something that I wrote the other day that they're asking me to share too. So I just want to find that. But James, what are we going to talk about next week? Or next?
Um, what about Jesus? No, I'd love to. There's a couple of things I'd love to touch on a bit more, which I think will come in the next week, like as we sit with this stuff and meditate on that, because that'll be the final one in this three-part series. But I, yeah, I do feel like something's come up for me now that I'd love to share. Now that people have heard that story, and I'd love to share another experience next week. And I'd also love to um, really channel, you know, that like in real time. Because
Yeah,
I had that in small doses with you, but I know that you do it quite a lot. And I haven't sat, you know, in any of your longer sessions. I mean, when we did the divine, I was able to sit with you when you were channeling, and it looked like you were dancing. Your arms were going around and moving, and so I'd love to experience that energy, the cry, you know, Jesus energy, in the next session, so everyone else can experience that. I think that'd
yeah.
be.
This is like, okay, thank you. All right, so the message that what after what we were speaking of, it's just that the power of prayer or the power of love lies within you, no matter how you see it. If Jesus does not feel like the gateway or the access point for you, it is more about what is it that you feel most connected to? Where is it that you feel most yourself? Where is it that you feel the safest? So it's like that three breaths between you and consciousness. Maybe you feel more comfortable calling it consciousness. Maybe you feel more comfortable in nature. It's like that, whatever you deem as your higher power, that's what this conversation is meant to open. We're using the energy of Jesus or connecting to the energy of Jesus, but it's like it's all one and the same. There is nothing within you, there is nothing that you're missing that is any different to James, to me, to anyone else, to Noah, to anyone else, right? There's
Mm.
if you feel like there is something missing, if you feel like there is something that you have that somebody else doesn't, we are all one and the same. It's just how our connection presents. So yeah, I'm more than open to keep this conversation going, or if people are interested, or reach out to us. I know the last one, both James and I got feedback, and I think for sure this one we're gonna get more.
Love
um,
getting the feedback, and I like what you're saying too, and because I got a few messages as well about, you know, about Christianity and stuff like that, you know. And I just want to say as well, like you know, whenever I talk about Jesus, it's not to try and like convert people, you know, to Jesus. It's just like my experience. It's my energetic connection, and I also have an energetic connection with Paramahansa Yogananda, who's, you know, Hindu, and you know, and it hasn't been as powerful as what it has been with Jesus. But I think because I grew up in a Catholic school and all that, I've been educated into that paradigm a lot more for a lot longer, and I naturally connect with it, you know. And yeah, but I embrace all other, you know, spiritualities as well, you know. Well, not all of them, but yeah, I mean, I do believe that they're all pretty much bringing the same message for sure. Religions, that is. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the message is that of love. It's not of follow this or connect to this. The message is just simply love. So if you're wanting to experience more love in your life or even just love, full stop, like close your eyes and take deep breaths and call in the energy of love and see what happens. So yeah. Mm. Is there anything else? Yeah, next week or next episode, it's like engines are getting revved up to channel. So this is where we can play. Like James and I both have many stories about this energy and working with this energy for ourselves and for others. Um, and next week we're going to show you what that looks like. Oh, I'm excited. I
yeah,
yeah, I'm excited to do long form channeling. This is like, so you know what? Between now and the next episode, if you have questions that you want answered, if you like, send us some questions and I'll get James to ask questions and then we can have that answer come through for you. So think of this as like a Q&A of Jesus. If you have questions that you want to ask Jesus, send them to James or I, by all of our contact details that you guys are connected to us with, or by any means that are listed below in the podcast. And we'll pick questions to ask of Jesus.
yeah,
I'm told that right now. So
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
get your questions ready for the next session.
Okay.
Right.
Um, Great. Well, thanks everyone for listening and tuning in, and thanks Nicole so much for organising this podcast. I'm so stoked to share on this and have these conversations with you and with everyone else that's listening. And Noah, we're gonna go and have some wheat bix. Get ready for school. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. And yeah, you'll have to listen next time. Send your questions in. If you are interested in working directly with James or I, our contact details are below as well. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And we're so excited to bring you next week with our third session of the date with Jesus. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, we'll see you then.
Peace and blessings.
Bye.